Welcome to the Rural Pastor Podcast with your host, Andy Addis, and special guest, Mark Clifton.
We plant the seeds in the ground, though the fields have long been brown. But Lord, when will your harvest come in? I'm giving all I've got to give in the place where I've been sent. But will my labor make much difference in the end? Will no one ever know? Sometimes I feel so all alone. Like the prophet Jeremiah, you may be the one to go to the dying and the broken with a message of hope. To that church on the corner of that forgotten little town, to a room of empty pews where his love can still be found. You may never know of all the seeds you sow, but it just takes one willing soul to make him know.
Just one willing soul. That's who we believe you are at the Rural Pastor Podcast. We are so thankful to have you joining us for another episode as we continue to build our library. My name is Andy Addis. I'm the volunteer rural strategist of the North American Mission Board's Replant team, also pastor a rural multi-site church called Crosspoint. And I am joined today with the wonderful and the fabulous Mr. Mark.
Hey, how you doing? Mark Clifton from the beautiful state of Kansas. We're both from Kansas. We're right out here in the middle of the country. We're in the middle of the action, the middle of everything that happens.
That's right.
In Kansas.
And the people that call us flyover country, we say keep on flying.
Yeah.
Keep on flying.
Keep on flying. Just keep on going. We're pretty happy here.
That's
Nobody
right.
else lives here but Andy, me, and about 8 other people.
Me,
so we're
you,
fine
and a
with
dog
that.
named Boo. Wasn't that a thing from back in the 70s?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I think so.
Well, here we are. This is called the Rural Pastor Podcast. So maybe you're just joining us in progress. So we want you to know that this podcast exists. All the resources are here because we want to pour into, partner with, and pat on the back the rural pastor because what you're doing is so important. Now, what we've been doing for the last several podcasts is there is a resource available to you called Doing More Together. It'll eventually, in just the next few weeks, become a hardback, a hard copy of a book. But right now you can get a digital download at theruralpastorpodcast.com, and you'll see that this is one section. We've been going over one chapter in this book that is chronicling some of the growth of Crosspoint Church, which was a dying neighborhood church, revitalized, and now is a rural network of churches that is continuing to grow in Kansas. And we are now to principle number 10 called multiplication over addition. But to back into this, I have a question for you, and
Yes.
I'll go first because I know I heard last time you said that I
Yes.
always throw you under the bus. So let me
You
go
do.
first.
I don't even know the question's coming. You prepared for it.
That's
so
right.
Go ahead. I want to hear yours. Go
Okay,
ahead.
here it is. What is your history with farm work? And this is important stuff for all of us who are in rural America. It's not that you had to grow up on a farm, but boy, there has to be some familiarity with it. And I spent time in the summers earning about it feels like a nickel an hour. I'm sure it was like $1 something an hour to pull rye. You know, where you walk through the fields and before they harvest, you had to pull the rye, snap it, lay it down low so that it didn't get caught up and it didn't, infest the next batch of seed that they were going to do. They wanted all the rye snapped and put down. And that was long, hard work, just walking fields, getting wheat cuts on your arm and snapping rye and putting it down. But the worst day that I ever had was I stepped over this big mound of dirt, had no idea what it was. I found out real quick on the other side it was a badger hole. And I don't know, Mark, if you've ever been chased by a badger, but I think Jesus walked on water. I walked on wheat. That was an amazing.
Chased by a you were chased by a badger.
Well, he didn't chase me very far, but I ran a lot farther than he chased. That was terrifying. So, they look kind of cute in the cartoons, but man, there's some vicious little beasts those guys are. And when you step over their hole, they ain't happy about it. So,
well, my dad was a county seat pastor for when I was growing up, and almost all of our members were either farmers or part-time farmers, and I loved to stay with them. And this one group raised a bunch of chickens, and so they let me go out and they'd let me collect the eggs. And I was out there in the chicken coop one time, and I dropped my gum on the floor, and I thought I found it 3 times.
Oh. You got to stop that. Listen, there's no 5-second rule in a chicken coop, brother. That's done.
Yeah, I found that out real quick.
All right. Well, we know each and every one of you probably has a great farm story, something that you learned by accident. Matter of fact, let me challenge you with this. Go ahead and in the post for this particular episode, go ahead and give us your story. We'd love to collect some of those. Those are hilarious. Just please don't eat chicken coop gum. That's not what
Just
any.
don't drop your gum. If you drop it, just leave it.
Just leave it. Anyway, as we talk today about multiplication over addition, what we're talking about is something that is very often foreign to the rural pastor because we deal with the issue of just surviving. But we want to talk about thriving. And why is that important? We have a great friend of the podcast, Brian Bowman. He is out in the Phoenix area, and he's one of the Sin City guys. And he said this, I stole it from him, and I've told him this, that if he said it once, but I've said it more than he has, so it's going to be mine pretty quick. Brian said, once you plant a church, anything can happen. And I really believe that if we start a ministry or we start a program or we build a thing, it can only do that, and it's got to be sustained. But if you plant a church somewhere, a church is a body of people that can testify to the greatness of Jesus. They can take the temperature of the community. They can adjust. It's the church that is going to be the thing that communities need. And that's why in rural America, I think we really have to get beyond just surviving in our local bodies and start thinking about thriving. And I believe God can bless that. So before we get out of the gate, how important is it, Mark, for us to be church leaders who take our eyes off surviving, even if that's all we think we can do, and understand that God has already resourced you through the person of Christ into thriving?
Yeah, man. Actually, it's a recipe for revitalization, is to take your eyes off of your own problems and think of something bigger and the greatness of God. Because when Paul writes to Timothy in 1 Timothy, one of the first things he tells him to do to help deal with the problems at Ephesus is to get the men to raise holy hands and pray for the gospel to be known around the world, and be grateful that the gospel's being known around the world, actually, he says. And this was at a time when you couldn't necessarily say the gospel had been known around the world.
That's right.
But again, helping them realize that they don't exist just to fix a few problems in Ephesus, that they're part of this greater, bigger, amazing, universal, can't be stopped, cosmic, God only can do it thing that's happening around the globe, and they ought to be grateful for that. And I do think that helps us thrive. I think when we see that we're part of something that is just cannot be stopped, then we get a whole new view of what we're doing, because we just focus in ourselves. Well, we're just 12 people. Well, we're just declining. Well, maybe, but you're part of God's kingdom that's never going to end and is going to win in the end and is marching toward victory, and great things are happening all around you. And so celebrate the fact that you're on the winning team, so to speak. And that kind of changes the dynamic, I think, within, it does. It changes the dynamic within the heart of a believer and within the confidence of the church.
And we're not talking about some Anthony Robbins power within, just think positive, everything will happen. We're talking about tapping into the fact that you were called by the God of the universe, and this is his plan. And you're joining him in his work and in his ministry with his resources. And sometimes we get distracted from that because we get bent on, well, what do I have to do in my place and what's my responsibility? And it really is moving that mindset back to the kingdom focus, back to the spiritual focused work instead of the grinded out kind of thing. So that's where we're starting from, multiplication over addition. And let's talk about a couple of things real quick. Crosspoint was a dying neighborhood church, the church that we're founding this story off of. 400 in its heyday in the 90s, dwindled down to less than 100 people, and hadn't had a pastor in 2 years. Then they hired me, which tells you if they've been looking for 2 years that they were scraping the bottom of the barrel.
You were, you weren't the tops on their list.
Yeah, no, they weren't like, we were waiting for you. That was not what was happening. But came, and now we're at this place where you understand that we have 14 locations. We have multiple thousand people able to be a part of this, but we have small congregations of just a handful of people in some places, and then we have larger places that make up this network. So experiencing both, but the key to this And one of the things that I think is really important is that when we ended up saying, let's just multiply, let's believe that the church is what rural communities need, and let's plant churches, is that we had to start with an open hand, closed hand mentality. So there were some things that we said, these are closed hand convictions, theological convictions, the orthodoxy regarding Scripture, our values of evangelism and missions, several other things that were in a closed hand. But there was so much that needed to be open hand about methodology, letting location pastors, letting leaders on the ground really understand the contextual needs of the community, that we just started to say, okay, there are very few things that if we're going to partner with you, if we're going to do this thing, that you have to do this. But these are things that are non-negotiables. But everything else, let's just get it done. And what you need, let's trust those people on the ground. And that's how that network was framed. And first of all, I just want to ask your impressions of that. Going into a work where you're partnering with resourcer kind of churches or sending or supporting churches, but there's this open hand and closed hand mentality. Does that make sense in church planting? Does that make sense in helping further the work?
It does. And guys and ladies, what he just said is some of the most important information you'll ever hear in missiology. You need to determine, under the leadership of the Holy Spirit and the Scripture, you need to determine what are those non-negotiables. And these are the non-negotiables. And they're theological, obviously, and doctrinal. These are non-negotiables. And then you just need to determine everything else. It is totally negotiable. I mean, we don't want to make soak plants non-negotiable. We don't want to make the church name non-negotiable. We don't want to make a certain hour of a certain day of the week non-negotiable. We don't want to make a certain kind of leadership and organizational governance non-negotiable. I mean, we can't do that. We're in a world that desperately needs the gospel. We're in the world that closes 4,000 churches a year across North America, 800 or 900 Southern Baptist churches. And man, we just can't make the non-negotiable things negotiable. We can't lose the gospel. But my goodness, we cannot make those things that shouldn't matter in all of the kingdom, the things that matter the most: the name of the church, the type of governance, this hour in which we meet, the kind of music, the kind of setting, the kind of equipment we put on the stage. All of those things are totally negotiable because none of them have anything to do with the eternity or the gospel. And to really sit down and help your people understand, okay, this is the firewall right here. This is the Scripture. This is the gospel. This is the apostles' teaching. But man, these other things, they are not. And we have to remove, Andy, every barrier between a lost person and Christ except the cross. So anything that's a barrier except the truth of the gospel has to be removed. And so any way we can make that pathway simpler and clearer to the gospel, then we need to do that.
100%. And such a good word, Mark, to encourage people in that place of how do I do this? And I think one of the dangers that we have right now is there are pastors and church communities right now that are small enough and in a survival mentality. And they say it's not a mentality. Read the checkbook, right? That we're in this place. And so I want to say, with an open and a closed hand mentality, we can actually turn our hearts around toward revival and begin a work. And let me explain this in these terms. What I'm proposing, what Crosspoint did, as we're talking about multiplication over addition, is not. I'm not even going to claim it's the best way to do it. I think it's a way to do it. If you can do it better, and do it more professionally, man, God bless you. That may be the best way. But what I'm talking about is a sower of the seeds mentality. Right now, the best church planters are commercial farmers, right? They've got great topsoil. They've done studies. They irrigate appropriately. They plant in lines. They do all that. But when I read the story of the sower of the seeds, it says what? That he sowed the seeds. It's actually not the story about the seeds. It's the parable of the soils, because he threw it out and it landed everywhere. It landed on hard, that got taken away. It landed on weedy, that, it got choked out. It landed on rocky, that sprouted up, but it didn't have roots to grow down deep. And then it landed on good. And I think that those of us in low resource areas, those of us in places where we don't have the $1 million combines of church planting, and we can't get that done, we can still sow seed everywhere. And as we sow seed, then we see where it lands in good soil, in this community, in this Bible study, in this youth ministry, in this FCA group. man, then we go, there's 30, 60, 100-fold, and we can focus on that.
Right. And you started with our friend from Phoenix with his quote that anything can happen when you plant a church.
Mm-hmm.
And that's right. Anything can happen. Some can land on hard soil and it can be a really tough place. But some, not all, but some, when they land on the right soil and the Spirit of God is in it, they're gonna multiply. They're gonna produce, like you say, 10, 30, 50 fold. I mean, it's amazing what can happen if you're just faithful in sowing the gospel. And what happens is, Andy, and I know because I've been there, and I walk every single day with men who are there.
Mm-hmm.
You get in a survival mode and you think there's only 8 or 12 or 15 of us. We've not come back after COVID. Our finances are really going down, and you absolutely forget that God can do anything he chooses to do with 8 or 10 or 12 people, and he can do some amazing things. But if you quit sowing the seed, nothing's going to happen. And so the adversary knows that the real danger for him is if you keep sowing that seed. So he gets you so discouraged and so despondent and looking for some kind of easy answer to grow the church again, to get the finances back again, that you're doing everything except what? Sowing the seed. You're not spreading the gospel.
That's it.
And I was working. I'm working with. Among the many churches I'm working with. All right, and there are many. There's one that has been in drastic decline, and the pastor's been there over 20 years. And we did a pastoral survey or pastoral assessment on him. Our team does a really exhaustive assessment of pastors and when they're in these situations. And he scored the lowest on personal evangelism.
Mm.
And so he pushed back on that. And he said, I just think that's incorrect. I don't see how that could be. And so we went over the survey with him, and basically he acknowledged in the survey he doesn't have a strategy or a habit or a lifestyle of sharing the gospel with unconverted people, and that he doesn't have any recent conversations with the unconverted in the last 2 or 3 years that were gospel focused. But he said, but I preach biblically sound gospel drenched sermons. Out to the same 7 or 10 who show up probably.
Right.
I mean, the point of that is he's not sowing the seed, right?
Right.
So if you're not sowing the seed, none of it's going to fall even on the bad ground, let alone on the good ground. And so wake up every day and say, man, I just sowed this seed. Anything can happen. Absolutely. God can do anything with that seed. But if you quit sowing the seed, ain't nothing going to happen. And adversary wants you to get so discouraged. And I've been there. I know. But your answer is not to withdraw and to quit doing the very one thing that God could absolutely use to turn everything around. Look, when I was my first church I ever planted, or the second one, I guess, we were just reaching anybody. And I'd done everything I thought I was supposed to do, read all the books, done all the stuff, and just really, really frustrated and didn't know what to do. And we're just going door to door. I was even doing that and everything. And long story short, been about a year and a half into it. And man, 20 people coming. This is in a relatively metropolitan area too. And all of a sudden, God brings across my path this one guy. And Brad came and led to Christ and became very passionate about Jesus. And all of a sudden on Easter Sunday, Brad comes with a whole bunch of his friends and their kids, and they fill up like 2 whole rows in our church because everybody Brad knows is lost.
Wow.
And that's all that took to start that church on its right path was one man who knew a lot of lost people. And it was like, that's it, and I realized from that, don't ever quit sowing that seed. Don't ever give up. It just takes that one convert who then can bring his friend and bring their friends, and all of a sudden you're you're mining a whole new vein that's been completely untapped, and it just changed everything. And I learned that as a very young man, and I've never forgotten it.
Well, that's it. Have you ever? I'm sure you've been there, Mark. I'm just sitting here right now, feeling like I want to jump out of my skin because this is so important, and it's such a minor adjustment in how you think and act that can have such major ramifications on your life, your ministry, your family, and everything. It's simply this: that no matter where you are, you can be a part of the global mission of Jesus by simply scattering seed. It's not about you helping keep the lights on in that local place. That will take care of itself to a large degree if you are about kingdom business.
I just got to share this story with you. So yesterday I'm at lunch with an executive pastor of one of the largest churches in 4 states. All right. They were just needing some information from someone like me. No, not really. They were just being kind. And he's a good man, and I just enjoy spending time with him. So here he is, the exec pastor of one of the largest churches in 4 states.
Right.
So we're at a restaurant. We're eating. First thing that happens is when the server comes over, the first thing this lady and this executive pastor does, he says, "Hey, what's your name?" The guy goes, "My name's Brandon." "Hey, Brandon, and having a good day?" "Nah, sort of, kind of, that kind of thing. Comes back. Every time Brandon comes back, this exec pastor asks him a different question, just about his life. "Hey, you in school?" "Yeah, I'm going to community college." "Oh, really?" Comes back the next time. "Hey, what are you studying?" "Well, I haven't really figured anything out yet, but thinking nursing." "Oh, really?" He said, they got nursing for." Comes back about to get our check, and he says, "Hey, Brandon, what do you like to do? What do you enjoy doing?" And he named a few things, and he said, "Brandon, I got a question. You ever go to church?" He goes, "Well, I was a kid, but I don't go anymore." He said, "Well, why was it? Was it boring?" "Yeah, kind of." He said, "Have you been to church recently?" "Well," he said, "I went with my mom a few weeks ago to this church," and he named it. "It's a good church." He said, "Man, that's great. You ought to go back." "Yeah, I know." He goes, "Man, how old are you?" He said, "I'm 20. He said, "You would make your mama the happiest woman in the world if you just call her up today and say, 'I want to go to church with you next Sunday.'" He said, "That would just make her you would just be her favorite child."
Oh, played the mom card. Yeah.
Yeah, he kind of giggled. And then he said, "Hey, no, seriously," he said, "listen," he said, "every Thursday night, our church has this group of people just your age, about 150 of them. They come together, man. They just talk about life." And he said they go out and eat after. He said, "You got a girlfriend?" "No." He said, "Hey, your next wife could be in that group, man. You never know." And it was like, I'm thinking, here's a guy who's an exec pastor of a church that's so big they can't park everybody. They have to have multiple services, and yet he cannot help but just naturally want to share Jesus with it. And it wasn't canned. It wasn't showy. He really cared about this kid. Yeah. It was relational. Now, let me tell you something. If you're a real pastor and you're going around town moping because your church is dying and you don't want to do, and you just wish you were somewhere else, who wants to become part of that? But here, this kid was looking at a man 2 times, maybe 3 times his age, and I could tell he was amazed at sort of the positive, optimistic attitude of this man. You can imagine how many customers this guy's deals with every day who are grumpy but this guy was like, he was drawn to this exec pastor because this exec pastor, first of all, really wanted to know about him. It wasn't also the guy was excited about something, and it was just, there's a reason that church is one of the largest churches in 4 states. I'm telling you, it's not the music. Amen. It's not the facilities. It is that DNA that said everybody matters and everybody is a potential convert to the gospel. And I just sow the seed everywhere, whether I'm in the pulpit on Sunday or I'm at a restaurant or wherever I am. And that was a huge learning lesson for me yesterday.
Well, and what you're saying there is so true, because it's about the reason that church, it's not a shock. I can't believe that guy in that position would be that way. No, if their staff wasn't that way, then they couldn't be that kind of church. You have to have that as a part of your DNA to move forward. Now, the reality is too, though, it's not just about, there's a difference. Have you ever gone to a wedding where they throw rice, and there's those loving people who gently toss the rice, and then you got the 1 or 2 brat kids on the side.
They just try to sting you in the face.
They're trying to take your eye out, right? Sometimes when we sow seed, we, like you were talking about that guy there, I mean, it was gentle, it was loving, it was encouraging, it was positive. Sometimes when we think, well, I'm just sowing seed, I'm just telling the truth, I'm calling them out, that's not what we're talking about. I mean, if we have that right attitude, if we have that heart of if we're really excited about our own faith, it's going to bubble out there. So we have lots more that we could talk about, but I want to get to a quick list here. We talk about moving from surviving to addition. Addition's good, but addition, I was told a number of years ago, I'm just going to summarize this story, that if every church planting organization continued on the most successful addition path, I mean, they were literally, every church was adding a church. If they were able to do that, we still lose the culture. by mid-century.
Yep.
Because
well, I think we're headed in that direction, right?
Right.
I mean, we're headed there.
So
right.
addition is not, we need multiplication. We need movement. We need God to move. And the only way that's going to happen, I believe, honestly, is if we just scatter seed and let God do what God's going to do. We've got to let it fall in all those places. That was the original plan. I say we go back to it. Anyway, here are some things I want to offer as movement making steps. First of all, it's got to start with prayer. If you want your church to be a part of a multiplication or a movement, then it has to start with your personal prayer and your corporate prayer. It doesn't start with a program. And I think if we're not on our knees and we're not seeking God, then that's actually, it's not the key that starts the engine. It is the symptom that shows us why we're not running like we should be running.
Yep. So good word.
It starts with prayer. And so we just finished an executive team meeting yesterday. And when we got done with what does the next 15 years look like, I was so thrilled that one of the things on the board was we have to be committed to personal and corporate prayer at a new level. And I'm like, oh, I love that. And when we said, where do we start? That's when I jumped in and said, that one. We start right there, and we don't even announce it. I'm breaking that rule right now because I'm announcing it. But I said we're going to do this personally, and we're going to do this privately, and then we're going to do this together as a team before we ever go anywhere. So it's got to start with prayer, and I think prayer actually is the work, and prayer is hard work. Depending on who you are, you may love it or not, but it starts with prayer. In your history, have you ever seen anything truly get healthy without prayer?
No, not at all. And Don Whitney famously said, there's nothing about prayer that appeals to our flesh. And so there's a lot about church planting and pastoring that kind of appeals to our human nature. We like to help people. We like to gather crowds. We like to be part of movements. But when it comes to prayer, you're right. It is a discipline. It is not easy to do because the adversary knows there's tremendous power in prayer. I mean, I don't do it nearly. And I don't, yeah. I realize when I do pray, man, what happens? I mean, the window of eternity opens up, and God allows God opens up the window of eternity, and I'm on this terrestrial ball here in a certain time frame, and God has never had a beginning, never had an ending. He's in all eternity, and he's in his throne, and he goes, you know what? If you just simply call out and pray in my name, I'll listen. Amen. I'll hear you. I mean, it's just why we can go day after day and not really take advantage of that amazing opportunity. And, Piper calls it wartime communication.
Yeah.
Like you're pinned down on the beach at Omaha, and man, you're getting peltered, and somebody manages to get a radio to you, and it manages to work, and you manage to be able to talk to the destroyer out off the coast, and you're able to tell that destroyer, look, you got to take out that pillbox up there. And he does. I mean, who would not use that communication? Because that's what prayer is. Primarily, it's wartime communication. Love it. And man, it's the most. Satan knows it. If he can just keep us from praying, he really has us where he wants us.
That's right.
And
movement making, multiplication, it has to begin with prayer, and that leads to the second point, which is this: a movement making, multiplying church. It's going to start with the personal revival of the pastor. Right. There has to be a joy and a passion there. And it's been beaten out of you for many of us. It's been beaten out of us because of responsibilities and time and the devil and the world and all this. But guess what? I love this more than anything else, that true movement making multiplication in the church becomes the joy of the pastor. It actually is part of Psalm 51. Restore to me the joy of my salvation. And when that joy comes, then the joy of serving, then the joy of multiplication, the joy of all that. So, the old adage of draw a circle in the floor and stand in it and say, God, start revival and start it in this circle. That's where it has to begin, that personal revival. And I didn't prep you on this, but if somebody said that they needed to be renewed or personal revival, and they just said, Mark, where do I start? I'm tired. I'm broken. I don't know where to begin. What would you say?
Yeah, I would say get Piper's little book, 50 Reasons Jesus Came to Die. And I'm serious about this. And it's 50 short little 3, 4, 5 paragraphs on the purpose of the cross. And so when you get discouraged, when I get discouraged, when I get depressed, it's because I'm looking at people, I'm looking at my finances, I'm looking at my health, I'm looking at the building, but when I look at the cross, I cannot be discouraged. I cannot be depressed. And so the way you can battle that in your life is to look to the cross and realize what that cross means. It is the source of life. It is a sign that I don't want to, how much time we got left, but when God told Abraham to take Isaac to the top of the mountain, and so he takes him up there, and I won't go into all of it, but he gets ready to kill Isaac, kill his only son, and God says, "No, stop! Now that I know you wouldn't spare your own son, I know you truly love me."
Mm-hmm.
Well, you fast forward, and God actually took his own son to the top of a mountain, and God did not spare him. God killed him. And we can say now,
that is right,
because you didn't spare your own son, I know you love me.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing you're loved by God, and knowing you're part of his plan, and knowing what he did for you on the cross, and knowing that on the cross he defeated both sin and the grave, you don't have to fear anything. When John fell in the island of Patmos before the feet of the risen Jesus, and Jesus put his hand on his shoulder and said, "Fear not, I was dead and now I'm alive. You got nothing to fear, man. I got it covered." That's it, guys. When you're depressed and discouraged, don't look for a silver bullet. Don't look for another church. Don't look at the people in your church to affirm you. Look to the cross.
Look to the cross.
However you can do that, whatever you can do, look to what Jesus has accomplished. The cross points to victory. It points to it. It's everything.
Amen.
And Satan wants us to get our eyes off of that and put our eyes on what's around us. And some of us just need to hear today that that's something we need to do. So anyway, that's what I would say.
Yeah, no secret sauce, no silver bullet. So you start with prayer, make a personal revival, and give us the name of that little book you were recommending, Mark.
50 Reasons Jesus Came to Die.
50 Reasons Jesus
I
Came to Die.
used to give one out to every, I think it's almost free. It's just one of his, he gives them a lot, but
That's
check it
awesome.
out. By the way, he was on a plane with me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know what to do. I was flying to Asheville. I'm sitting there and he gets on the plane. I'm thinking, oh my goodness. And I actually had that little book in my bag. And I'm sitting there thinking, I've been on a plane with I'm at an airport with Ricky Skaggs, and I've been on a plane with Marty Stewart. So those guys, it's like, hey man, I'm going to get up and walk up, say, hey, can I, when we get off the plane, can I get a picture? Can I get an autograph? And they go, oh, sure. You can do that to Piper.
You just couldn't do it to him?
I could. So I didn't do anything except I did text my team and I said, hey, Piper's on my plane. They go, oh, really? And I said, yeah, the thing is, if it goes down, all the news media is going to be about John Piper and nobody's going to know I was even on this plane. And so the guys on my team, so the guys on my team said, well, that's okay, Mark. If the plane goes down, we will live stream your funeral on the last ever episode of Monday with Mark. So I got that going for me, which is nice.
I can appreciate it. And oh, the love. Okay, so start with prayer. If we want movement making multiplication, you start with prayer, make it a matter of personal revival. I would add to Mark's book recommendation this: get a group of 3 to 5 others, leaders, or even other pastors in other churches that you're praying about the same thing with. There's something about that kind of community and accountability that draws you forward, which might lead to the third thing, which is be kingdom focused. Because of shortness of time, when we scatter seed, we can't scatter seed and then put up a fence and say this has to be ours. But we scatter seed and we let that stuff grow. And if it grows and it blesses us, we have a system called levels 1, 2, and 3. And that's for another podcast that we could talk about. But level 3s or level 1s, we don't even know what's happening out there. We're just hoping that somebody in the kingdom uses. Level 2s, we know a little bit about, but it may or may not ever come back. Level 3, whenever you hear me talk about anything that's Crosspoint, those have to be level 3s. Because we want everything else just to be out there. And we're going to scatter that seed. And if God blesses another denomination, if God blesses another ministry, if God blesses a competing church in town, which is not a true thing, but a competing church in town, then so be it. It doesn't matter. It's got to be kingdom focused. Any thoughts there?
Absolutely. Nope, that's good. Good stuff.
So one last one. Starts with prayer, personal revival, kingdom focused. And then if it's a movement-making, multiplying thing, it has to be Jesus exalting. And you've already touched on that at the beginning. It has to be Jesus exalting in your life. It has to be Jesus exalting in the church. Anything. You will never see no movement has ever happened that had the light shining back on the human conduit. Right. It was always.
It has a lifespan. If it's all about a person, it has a lifespan.
That's right.
If it's about Jesus, it's for eternity. And every person is going to fail you. Every person is going to fail you. So if that light is on any person, they're going to fail you. But if that light is on Christ, he won't. So it has to be all about Christ. Absolutely.
Amen and amen. Start with prayer, personal revival, kingdom focus, Jesus exalting. That is what we are looking for. We know that God can move in churches of any shape and any size. We want to be multiplying churches, and we do that when we scatter that seed. Matthew chapter 13, verses 8 through 9 says, other seed fell on good soil and produced grain, some 100-fold, some 60, and some 30. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Guys, it's been a pleasure to be with you today. Next week, we're going to be talking about multi-site having some pandemic advantages. Many blessings, and we'll see you soon.
Like the prophet Jeremiah, you may be the one to go to the dying and the broken with a message of hope. To that church on the corner of that forgotten little town, to a room of empty pews where his love can still be found. You may never know of all the seeds you've sown, but it just takes one willing soul to make him known.
Thank you so much for joining us at the ruralpastorpodcast.com. A special thanks to Chosen Road for this incredible theme music, to 180 Digital, our corporate sponsor, and you can check out both of them at our website as well as other resources, because you're not alone. And Rural Pastor, we believe in you at the ruralpastorpodcast.com.